Courtney Sullivan, are you ready to fearlessly question?
Yes.
It's been quite a process. I'm glad that we are here. We are in a special, I call it prime time edition of Fearlessly Questioning. It's about time. I mean, they bumped us up to a better time slot. I mean, so kind of to ease into things, we're here live, 7 o'clock in the evening, to fearlessly question Thanksgiving dinner. And we've been talking about this show in some form or fashion for way too long, and it's finally happening.
Yeah.
And you are the first person to kind of bring this show in a whole different direction. So people may love it, they may hate it. I honestly don't care. But why don't you catch everybody up and tell them why you are here and your story fearlessly questioning Thanksgiving dinner and to a lesser extent food.
Hi, Courtney Sullivan here, and my family and I run a farm in upstate New York, and I'm here to fearlessly question Thanksgiving dinner because Joey asked me to. We've been
You're
talking.
just giving them the goods right off the top.
Yeah, that's the deal. Yeah. That's the deal, and that's really how you and I connected. Really, was about food. You know, there's all sort of people on Google Plus, and for whatever reason, my story of our little farm. So we grow. Work about 4.5 acres really intensely. We have a 170-acre farm. People can come and stay there and see what we do and the whole deal. We sell at a little local market. So we're like belly to belly, directly with people all the time. And I realize that I live in kind of like a little local food womb that like the rest of the country, you know, doesn't experience food and food issues the same. And you know, on our part, it's pretty strategic. We settled here for a reason because that's what that's what we want. But that was after a lot of fearless questioning of saying, you know, what's going on with the food supply? What are we going to do to raise a healthy family? What action are we going to take in the face of the knowledge that we, you know, gleaned and the wisdom that we now have? And so we decided to start a farm, and now we eat well, you know, from our farm and from farms that grow locally. But for me, that's not enough, you know. I still keep questioning what's going on with the food industry and how we got to this point, how we can even talk about what's in food, like what's going on with it. How did it get so crazy that you have to ask about it, you know?
Well, and you make a good point because this is definitely a topic where it's very easy for somebody to hit the crazy button really fast, you know, because you start talking about these things in this sort of way and people say, oh, you're kind of weird about that, aren't you? I'm going to kind of go stand over here far away from you. And that kind of stuff, I think, happens. And it's really hard to have these conversations. And, you know, and as much as the show is kind of, like you said, it kind of follows a normal kind of format or tone, if you will. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that today. I don't think, because I can't do it, like, because I'm just too on your side, and it's going to be more conversation based. I think I do have some questions, and the first fearless question to you, I guess I will ask is, and I don't know if it's a good one, but I think it's one that I want to know the answer to. Is why have we kind of let the importance of food slip away?
Well, I think I would have had one answer, you know, if you had asked me this 10 years ago. And now after doing this for 15 years, it's because life was hard. Life was harder, like back in the day, you know, before all the processed food and everything came to be. Like, you know, there was a reason why housewives were susceptible to the marketing of TV dinners and canned foods and frozen foods and all that stuff, because, you know, as a homemaker myself, it's a hustle, like in the day-to-day, keeping everything together. And I think that that's really where people started to kind of slip away. It was just like people were tired, you know, they wanted a different life. You know, it kind of overlapped with like the changing in society, the changing of times, and then how food, you know, there just really wasn't a lot of science. That was still when like it was questionable. Tobacco is doing harm. What? You know, like, I mean, you have to think of the context in the time period where food really has kind of slipped away. And so that's, you know, that's where it began, and I think that that's really what it is. People just got too busy, and people trust that there are people looking out for their best interests. You know, like, oh, you mean it's not it's approved, by the FDA, or like it's safe. It's generally regarded as safe, and people just trust. They don't want to believe that something sinister can be going on with like corruption in the food supply. But that's where we're at, is kind of like people were just sort of trusting and busy, and now we have a situation that's completely out of control with the amount of chemicals that are in food, whether it's processed or not, just conventional food.
I'm glad you brought up the trust thing, and it's very interesting kind of dynamic. And the thing that fascinates would be an understatement. More like scares the crap out of me is probably the really word that I should use.
Yeah.
But I mean, that trust is so implicit. It's so deep that people will kind of so strongly defend this system, if you will, this industrial food system, to the point where, oh, that's not true. You're being a hippie organic vegan freak, and I don't want to hear anything about it. It's like, this isn't that bad. Oh, they're just making this stuff up. And we talk a lot about business and marketing on the show. I mean, if a business could create that type of kind of, we'll call it brand loyalties to an extent, of that kind of industry, it's really remarkable. I don't know if there's a question in there, but I just felt like I needed to say that, and I'm sure you have thoughts on it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, look, my family. Hello, family. I can see my family just joined in live. Just want to shout out to them at home on the farm. I had to actually leave the farm to do this call. For anyone who's familiar with the internet services in upstate New York, you wouldn't have even been able to hear me or see me if I was at home. Yeah, and I don't even, I mean, definitely brand loyalty, because that gets into a whole deeper issue of chemistry, and just how the body really responds, like the whole dopamine and all of that from processed foods that people eat. And I think that has a lot to do with the brand loyalty. But when we're talking about the Great American Farm story kind of thing, there's a lot of love for that narrative. I mean, just like when you think of how many children's books about farming portray it in this way, that like it just isn't really like that. And I do like to preface anything that I say about the farming industry, that there's no doubt that American farmers, they're a very small segment of the population, and they work really hard, long hours, and lots of crazy inclement weather, and it's a stressful profession, and they love it, and that's what's hard about the conversation, is it's not it's not against the people that are doing it, it's not against who they are, it's not against their way of life, but long term it has happened, because there's large interests that are involved, and again, it's the just trust us, we have the good science and this and that, and it's not that, it's just not in our best interest to just blindly trust industry when they say stuff is safe, because there's just not enough people really checking out the whole cycle. Whoops.
And little technical difficulties here. We just got crashed by, I believe, the 1/3 or 2/3 of Courtney's family, and I think we lost Courtney here for a second, but we will get her back in momentarily. Let's see here real quick. While we're waiting for Courtney to hop back in, the joys of live hangouts. The question that I want Courtney to ask when she does come back is, or answer I say when she does come back, is what we're going to be talking about is, we all kind of are going to be getting together with our own families in the next couple of days, and depending upon how crazy or not crazy you are about this, is you're going to be forced to sit down and eat somebody else's meal that might not care as much as you do, and that's going to provide for a very awkward scenario, or at least you're going to have to just kind of sit down and just eat or not, and it's up to you. And that's kind of what we want to get at in this whole Thanksgiving thing, is the idea of people doing what's best, or what they think is best, and how to kind of go about that. Just give me 1 second here while I try and get Courtney back in, and we will see if we can't resume this episode. And we are
Hi.
back. Fantastic. I had
Hi.
to do a
Sorry
little
about that
impromptu.
narrative there.
Yeah, I did a little tap dance, a little song.
Sorry.
No, but you're back, so good. I have somebody to talk to. And the question that I was asking and prepping the audience for, in your absence, was the idea that, okay, so everybody is going to be going to a family gathering of some kind here in the next few days. They're going to be sitting down for the biggest meal of the year. They're all excited. Everyone's, oh, we're going to make this great meal. But yet most of it has been bought from a place that doesn't care that much about food. Most of the people that they're going to be sitting down to have that meal with doesn't care about food that much. And then you're going to have to sit there and eat it. And being a person that cares about food, how do you, I mean, I feel like you live in a little bit of a fairy tale, like where that
I
doesn't exist.
do.
And
Yeah, I
for that, I
do.
will always hate you just a little bit. But let's pretend that you are not that person
Uh,
for a minute. Like, what advice do you have for those people in that position?
Well, I mean, it's actually kind of like the worst scenario, right? To be fearlessly questioning, right? Because it's almost like, other than talking about politics, I don't know what could be like, more dicey of a subject than
Well,
where did this food come from?
let's stop right there. Why is that? Because that's something that why is that such a sensitive topic? Like I don't understand it. It doesn't make much sense to me.
Why is the quality of food a sensitive topic?
Yeah, like you said, it's like if you bring up food, it is like talking about politics, and like I mean, I've
Oh
dealt with
yeah.
it. Yeah, like why is that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think people like to feel like they have some level of expertise, like the common knowledge, or like generally accepted knowledge. And so I think most people, um, they like to feel comfortable with certain subjects. So like I think politics is a hot issue, and then food, which is related to politics on some level, is a hot issue because like it really pushes people's buttons, because it's bringing up a topic that they haven't. I mean, how many hours are spent in school talking about local food and real nutrition? I mean, close to nothing, and that even includes our entire medical profession. I mean, so it's like it's a completely unknown area that people frequently just repeat sound bites that they've heard, or rely on, information that makes them feel, most of the time people who agree with certain points that they learn about food or local food, they will dive deeper and keep questioning, keep asking, and make changes to their lifestyle. And then there's other people who just, are like, no, I'm not going there, I'm shutting down, it's fine, it works for me. And I mean, I think it comes down to, especially in this day and age, like how your family's been affected by different diseases and degenerative diseases, because that's how I feel. I mean, I know that was a big part when I was 15 years old of why I started getting into health food, and really questioning what are we eating. And so, okay, good. Like, I think my family is messing me up from home. And so that was what I always found, was that, people just don't want to go there. They haven't had enough time to really sit with the issue, or to, have it in the general channels that we bat around knowledge and go back and forth. It's one of those things that you learn after. So, and it's inconvenient. I mean, let's just be really honest about that. Like, have to think about what you put in your mouth in this day and age. Like, it's inconvenient, because if you really do care and you really do think about it, like, you're going to be doing a lot more cooking. You're going to be doing a lot more planning of like where you're traveling and how you're eating, and it's not business as usual. Like, it changes your life. I mean, it really does.
And those are obviously a lot of great points, and you threw a lot of people under the bus, which I'm glad that you did. I was going to get to it myself, but you beat me to it. So, um, I think the thing I want to kind of touch upon really quickly, and I think we'll get back to the original question at some point, but like
Yeah.
you said, the medical profession, schools, people that we look to normally to kind of as authorities on this. I mean, I don't know how many
Mhm.
times, like my wife will say, the doctor says this, the doctor says that. I'm like, our doctor's 300 pounds overweight, but whatever.
Yeah.
You want to take your word for it, that's fine, but they don't really talk about that kind of stuff in medical school.
Hmm.
Um, how do we break that relationship of trust that is already kind of built in or perceived, or it's just kind of blindly given?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have dealt with this a lot, and that's well, I had already begun to fearlessly question food and that's why I started fearlessly questioning medicine also, because I just didn't understand why there was a disconnect. You know, if medicine is dealing with the human body, which is made up of cells, why is there no connection to what is going in that's nurturing those cells? So at a very young age, I always ask that question. But so how I deal with it, especially with doctors and stuff, is to just really try to, you know, if you need their services, if you're if you're having an exchange, to just really focus on what is their area of expertise, where do they, you know, where do they really excel, how can they really be of service, and just really rely on them for that, and then do outside research. Institutions take a very, very, very long time to adjust. So this is, you know, knowledge that we now know about food and, you know, the effect on the environment and on our bodies. It's going to take a really long time. I mean, you can be in the hospital for like bypass surgery and you get this terrible meal from, you know, from the cafeteria after, which is like made up of all the things that contributed to people being in that situation in the first place. So, and not that there aren't some good hospitals that is adjusting, but I mean, if you look at the scope of time, it's taking a really long time to adjust. So hospitals, doctors, and so especially like well checks, and I mean, there are some minor victories, right? Like, you know, with pediatric medicine and wellness care and different things. I mean, there are some things, but it's just institutions are, you know, gigantic, and it just takes some time for them to adjust. So I would say, you know, go for what they're super good at and what they're super specialized in, and then the peripheral things, like, you just, you know, it's in your best interest to really research and to question and test and prove. Don't just take people's word for it, you know. Apply it to your life, see what happens.
And while we're actually, just want to call out a couple people in the audience. We have some Google Plus heavyweights joining us this evening to take in a little food controversy. Alex Vicky Gonzalez says that she feels like a bad guest at Thanksgiving, talking about the idea of, you know, your food kind of tastes and not necessarily fitting in with the meals being prepared. Mr. Ryan Hanley, I guess we could consider him the godfather ourselves to our little meeting here, says he actually is prepping the Humble Hill services, said he had some fresh garlic in the house, and he did some cooking of his own. I would like to see Ryan in the kitchen with an apron and chopping some garlic. That would be that would be quite the sight. And of course, Gina Fidel is here as well. Glad that she could join us as well. So we're going to take a break. We're going to let you turn the tables on everybody, some of our fine audience members, and it's your turn to ask them a fearless question, something that you maybe have always wanted to know from somebody, but we're unsure about the answer or the response. Now's your time on a live audience. Why not go ahead and ask it?
Yeah, I mean, my fascination is always just turning points, right? So my fearless question would just be, you know, what is it going to take for food to be important, where, you know, where it's something that you are going to take action, diving deeper, looking into, like, since it is one of those things that's kind of easy to be like, maybe later, you know, I don't have time. Like, what is it going to take to really, to chase that answer all the way through of, you know, to finding like the pure food that's really going to nurture your body and create a healthy family legacy, because that's a big thing. And so, yeah, I just always wonder for people, like, you know, if it's already happened, what was your turning point? If it isn't, if it's kind of like whatever, like, what's it going to take, you know?
And feel free to kind of respond as we go along. We'll feature some of your answers as well, and let those kind of work their way into the show. What's it going to take? That's a good question. I like that a lot. For me personally, my body just said you're fat and stop being fat, and then I kind of accidentally started caring about food, and it kind of worked that way. So if you're not like that, then I'm sure it's a little bit harder. Do you have any sort of tips to figure out exactly how to discover that turning point?
Well, yeah, I put together this fun little thing on our website over at Humble Hill. I'm pretty sure it's still up, and it was just how to learn everything that you ever wanted to know about food in a weekend with Netflix. And so it's just like 10, you know, flicks that are available, streaming video. Sometimes it takes building an awareness and just you know, coming back to the issue and in different angles from different perspectives. And I just felt like, you know, in a weekend you could kind of knock out some of these. They're not all like documentary. They're not boring documentaries, because they really do ask some great questions, and and let you look behind the scenes, because sometimes that's all it really takes, is like people have no idea, you know, how, like, there's a reason why kitchens and restaurants are like walled off. It's a mess back there. It's crazy. It's like worse than you ever want to imagine in some places. And it's like that with our food. It's like that with the food supply. Like, you can't even really believe what's going on unless you see it for yourself. And so that was, I mean, that's what got me going and really digging deeper and keep asking questions. It was like, really? That's what's going on? Oh my goodness. You know, like, that's crazy. So, yeah, that helped a lot. It's just to really figure it out.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, so much of this is just kind of whether it's intentional or intentional ignorance on everyone's part. You know, talking about just the even idea of, so we're preparing this meal, and you know, people will even, let's say, and we've got some people, Gina and Chef Dennis Lilly stopped in as well. He said his turkey came from Whole Foods. He's going to get the organic bird. But even then, it's like it's come to a point that we've gotten to a point where they've overplayed the organic or whatever, the all natural. You know, people think organic this, all natural that, and like I'll be walking through the store with my wife, she picks this up, so like, oh, this is, I'm in like a safe zone. Like once you're in Whole Foods, like all is right with the world, which is not even close.
Not even close. Yeah.
And you still have to be very picky and choosy. And just go ahead and just rattle off some of your favorite food buzzwords, if you will, to kind of like say this is what you need to pay attention to, and this is what's important.
Oh, as far as when you are shopping?
Yeah.
Yeah, local is a great buzzword, because a lot of times you can quickly learn the story of that farm. You know, like if you're shopping in a place that's really promoting that, you can, sometimes they have little story write-ups, or you know, they feature the farm and stuff. So local is a great buzzword. You know, free range is a great buzzword. There's a lot of creative ways to get around the organic standard, because, like, for example, I can't use organic to describe our farm because we don't go through hours and hours of filling out paperwork and documenting every seed we plant to everything we harvest. We don't have time for that. But we do follow organic practices, but I can't ever use that. So there's some interesting ways, you know, that people get around using that, you know, to just say that they're on the level of chemical-free food. So, you know, no spray is a good one. Then there's more organic. There's somebody, he just put an M on there, so he's like even beyond. Beyond organic, some people say, like authentic food. You know, there's all sorts of little terminology, and to kind of go for food that doesn't really have too many buzzwords on it, you know, to kind of get in there and meet the farmers. You can use localharvest.org and type in your zip code and just find all the local farmers in your area. Not all of them, but a lot of them are on that website, because it's a great way to hook up with what's going on local. So, you know, it's tricky with the marketing, because yeah, a lot of times it doesn't mean all that much. You know, you could say, oh, cage free. It doesn't necessarily mean that what you think it's going to mean. So yeah, you kind of, labels are a little tricky. You have to go, oh, the GMO free is really something that I go for, the GMO free verified. There's that little rectangular label, and there I really like to look for food that has that, especially if it's not organic. I definitely like to go for the GMO free verified, and those are pretty much the main the main ones that I go for.
That was quite a list. That was actually more than I anticipated. So I was actually dutifully writing down that entire thing. I've got the whole thing, every single one of them.
But I did want to go. Can we just jump back to that one question I feel like I didn't totally answer? So if you're sitting down to Thanksgiving dinner,
now you're trying to control it. I'm getting there. Just hold on.
I'm sorry. Okay.
We're getting there. I'm coming back to it. I'm coming back to it. We're going to get to it. Geez, Courtney's trying to run the show here now.
Sorry, I know. Look at me. I got a good internet connection, and now I'm like out of hand.
Wow, look at life is good. So we do have some questions, or I should say some answers to your fearless questions, which we're going to kind of get to real quickly. So Alex says her turning point for her was working out when she extended copious amounts of energy. You realize how little your food is offering you. So very good point. To that, again, that's like the whole, I think we'll get to that here in a second, kind of expanding upon that a little bit. And then I haven't read this yet, so I'm going to try and get through it. I'm terrible at reading on the spot. Her turning point was when, you're talking, let's see, when 10.5 years ago, that's a long time, I realized I needed to make a huge change. I decided to go on essentially an anti-inflammatory diet, which is, that's intense. I like that a lot. So, okay, Gina Fidel has a lot of even probably things up on me and you. I would say that's
I
a
think so.
pretty
Yeah.
intense diet. I know that we still indulge in the gluten from time to time, as we talked about love for the making of homemade pizza and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, let's get back to that question about um, sitting down at the table with those family members that obviously don't care as much about food as you do. You're kind of like the weirdo, the black sheep. Um, I mean, what do you do? I mean, because I mean, most of the time you'll fill your plate a little bit, and then if your grandma's sitting there, she's like, "Eat, eat. What's wrong with you? Eat, eat." Mangia. That's what we say in the Italian families. But
Yeah.
what do you do?
Well, there's a couple of things you can do. I mean, if it's really as important as it, like Gina would not be able to do that. So you would work it out ahead of time and be like, I'm bringing this. This is what we're going to bring. We're going to enjoy fellowship with you, enjoy your company, give thanks, but we may have to bring our own food for our health. I mean, that was my fantasy land lifestyle. That was what we always did until free range really caught on. And, it was only a couple years ago that our family was like, oh, yeah, these are local potatoes and this is a free range turkey. But, 5-10 years ago, that wasn't the case, So if it's really important, just graciously bring your own food and go there in a loving way. I would say it's really not the best day to talk about it, like it's just not.
Well,
And it's better to do it on your own turf, like if not this Thanksgiving, but if any holiday or any gathering you were just like, I want to take a stand against crap food, and like I really host it yourself, and or get involved in as much of the preparation of the food as you can, because they feel like if you make it and you put energy into it, people are always like a little bit more receptive to what you have to say. Because
Courtney, have you ever tried to tell a grandma that she's not cooking Thanksgiving dinner? Have you ever done that before? It seems like a very dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, I was the youngest of 17 grandchildren, so I was I wasn't old enough to have these issues with my grandma. So yeah, like I said, it's one of those things you could just figure it out, or I don't know, or offer to buy her the turkey. I'm not really sure.
Offer to buy your grandma the turkey, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go. Let's approach it from this angle. Is it that big of a, like, okay, so should we be able to just kind of say, all right, it's not that big of a deal, one meal's not going to kill me? Is that an approach to take, or are we just kind of becoming part of the problem?
It's kind of a tough answer, Joey. I mean, I never did. I was always hardcore and like strict, and no, one meal matters. Every meal matters. Like, we never, we did. Well, because again, it's the trusting. To me, I never trusted that one meal wasn't going to matter. I was like, oh, I know where that came from. I know the story of this food, and like I didn't ever trust that it wasn't going to matter. Like for me, there's no, it's that whole pain pleasure connection thing. I've kind of rewired my brain, and like that I associate all that stuff with pain. I don't associate it with pleasure. So it's not like, oh, one meal. To me, I was like, oh, one meal is going to do me in. I'm going to be so out of it. So, if you don't have a crazy reaction, if you're not on a super strict diet, I mean, yeah, you could. But again, it's certain things and generational things. Like if we're talking grandmas here, I mean, some grandmas actually appreciate it, because my neighbor was 97 when she passed away, and I would bring her chicken and I would bring her food, and she would tell me how good it tasted, because she remembered when food used to taste that good. So some grandmas might be appreciative of it if you bring them the ingredients. But then, yeah, get out of the way, let them do their thing. Don't try.
It's interesting. I like your style, though. I appreciate that you are hardcore 100% of the time. So let's go back to what Alex said about the whole fuel thing and her turning point of listen, she's working out and she's understanding, because this is I think where the whole conversation at least boils down in my opinion. I think and part of it is we've actually forget like what it's actually meant to do. So, and that is to increase or enhance our ability to actually do the things that we want to do, right? So if I were to give you a bottle of red wine vinegar and say, here, go put this in your car and get to work, it's not gonna probably do you all that great. So I mean, it's a terrible example, but you know what I'm saying. Why have we made that disconnection of this is the stuff that is going to actually improve our overall performance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's being made now, but I think it's just a lag. It's like in the 1900s, putting a man on the moon was like, oh no, it seemed crazy, and then technology and science caught up, and then that was a possibility. So I think it's coming along. I I think science and medicine and identifying the fuel, that we're taking in and the purity of it, I think it is coming along, and unfortunately it's going to be undeniable because the health of people in the nation and the nation's children, which are really kind of the canaries that are showing what's going on and the effect that it's having. Unfortunately, I mean, we can't not pay attention to these things because we're seeing so much degenerative diseases and all these things come up in the population. I mean, we can't not make the connection. It's pretty undeniable because it's like there's only so many things that that are going into children's environments, and we're having all these unfortunate health consequences come up with people. So I think it is definitely coming along. I mean, I'm optimistic about it. Like I said, when we first started dealing with the Thanksgiving issue, just how dramatically different it is now versus just 5-10 years ago. So it's looking up.
And of course, if anybody wants to ask Courtney a fearless question of their own, you can do so by adding the hashtag camera ready to your question in the event page. We're going to be here with Courtney for a few more minutes and wrapping up our conversation on fearlessly questioning Thanksgiving. And now, Courtney, I got to ask this. So what does Thanksgiving look like at the Sullivan household?
Thanksgiving is actually really mellow because we see our family all summer long. So we run the bed and breakfast together. My mom comes up. She has this motorhome that she lives in on our farm, and we're together, 7 days a week in proximity to each other. So Thanksgiving for us is we're down to it's usually the first weekend that we're doing one market. And instead of 3 markets a week, so we're down, like Sunday market just ended, so we're down to 1 market a week, and like fall sports are over, and it's actually a day to just really decompress. So it's super mellow at our house. We have traveled before. Rick has some family, some sisters and a brother, and so we have had the fun of going on a huge family adventure going there. But for the most part, we stay home on the farm. And and just we eat and bake, and the kids will get to watch their occasional movie or something that they get to do. But for the most part, it's chill. So yeah, again, my perspective is from fantasy land of chill and not having to deal with family politics and all that kind of stuff. But that's just kind of a choice. We could go deal with family. There would be a nice free-range turkey if we went to one of his sister's houses, but it's chill. What does it look like at your house?
We actually don't host, so like we're all over the place. So we're like we live in between both of our families. So we're at my wife's family's on Thanksgiving, and then we're up in my family's over the weekend. So we have like 3 Thanksgiving dinners, and it's crazy. And, we're always all over the place for the holidays. So it's definitely a fun, interesting, and mostly chaotic time. But
yeah.
So wrapping things up here, the last kind of thing that I want to get out of you, if we could, if somebody has to go sit at their Thanksgiving dinner, whether they're hosting it if they're lucky enough, or if they're attending, what's one thing that you would suggest for somebody to do to kind of get one step closer to that turning point, whether it's on Thanksgiving or whether it's every day after, hopefully?
You mean when they're sitting there to just?
Well, I mean, not like literally like when they're sitting there, whip out like a Whole Foods like food guide or anything. I mean, like
no.
Give me something like one practical step like that to take to get to that turning point, or to help them continue to fearlessly question whether it's Thanksgiving or another meal in their life.
Yeah, I mean, I have this, I don't know if this is really answering your question, but I'll just share it with you, is that part of what I do all the time is I visualize like the supply chain of all the things. So, I mean, Thanksgiving is an extremely dramatic holiday of just like incredible, American culinary bounty. So, to just think about all the effort that went into producing everything. I mean, even something as simple as butter, which is like, I mean, if you think about the life of like a dairy farmer and how they're, 365 like all the time up at, some of these guys are up at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. milking 7 days a week. I mean, it's intense. So maybe just to try to like get a little bit more grounded in what it takes to produce food and start asking questions and try to find people near you who are doing it, even if you're not going to go like 100% all, you know, on the crazy train with us here, fearlessly questioning everything, to just, you know, start with some things, because that's what I see at market is, you know, some people like the gateway local foods, you know, usually people start looking for like local meat, or maybe they want local fruit, or they want really good tasting garlic or carrots or something, you know, there's usually something that people start with. So that's what I would say, is just to kind of take a minute, and it's one of those things you don't have to talk to anybody else about it. It's not going to be like some big political discussion, but just sort of sit there like in the moment of just the incredible abundance. We all know how that goes, of just like amazing amounts of food, and think about how did it get there? Yeah, what had to happen?
I like that suggestion, but I will have to end. I have to ask this question now that you said
Okay.
all that kind of stuff. And one thing that I will say is, what is the one food source, ingredient, thing? What's that one thing that you will not compromise on ever, that you have to have like the absolute best of?
Oh,
Except
on
for
that.
butter, meat. You know,
Yeah,
what's the one
my
thing?
list is very long, Joey. It's
I'll take a top five if you have.
okay.
If you can't
Yeah.
do one, I'll take a top five.
Eggs, all dairy products. Definitely, like I stick to the clean 15, that list of the least amount of pesticides if things are not organic. I avoid the dirty dozen, so like I won't, you know, I'll shy away from the non-organic strawberry toppings and raspberry and peach stuff and apple stuff. I definitely shy away from, you know, apple juice beverages and this and that, grape juice and all those kind of things. Um, Sorry, my family my family doesn't know how Google Hangouts works, and they keep trying to join in and talk. Sorry about that.
It happens.
Um, Everyone else's family tries to crash the Hangout too.
No, that's a
Um,
first, but I'm sure it's happened somewhere at some time.
um, Yeah, so those are pretty much, yeah. I won't compromise on those things, and then everything else I'm pretty rigid. I'm definitely not known for my flexibility, although I did make it to this hangout, so we I get 1 point in the flexibility corner for today, but I'm definitely
A lot of
not known
firsts
for that.
happening with the Courtney Sullivan hangout. That is for sure. Well, I'm going to take away that I heard like dairies and eggs and things like that seem to kind of top your list as the kind of the first things that you're going to go for.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They're just, you know, the highest level, the most contamination,
Yeah.
and all the drugs and all the other stuff in there. So yeah, it's such a tangled web, but those are definitely some of my top things.
We made it an entire food show without saying the words like grass-fed. I'm surprised. I said it now. It would, but
Oh, okay, grass-fed, yes. Well, you know why? Because we were talking turkeys, and
yeah,
turkeys aren't marketed as grass-fed.
yeah.
That's
It's pasture
mainly
raised, right? Is that the
right,
buzzword that we
right,
should be looking
pasture
for?
raised
Yeah.
and free range, or yeah, it depends how it goes. But I think everybody by now, well, hopefully, you either bought your turkey, or if you wanted a pasture raised, you had to have requested that and like secured that, probably. Although I don't live in a big city, so that's the thing. My little fantasy world. We around here we have to order from the farmer as it's being raised and all that. People sell out all the time, so it's a different world, but.
Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to come on, and as much as I will hate you a little bit for your fantasy land that you do live in, where can people find more about you? Where do you want people to go to learn more about you and all the good things that you guys do on your farm?
Yeah, we're just at humblehill.com, so you can check us out over at humblehill.com, and I have a local food starter kit there. You can just sign up for that if you're interested in like how do we start, you know, for like what is she talking about, all this stuff, and I got you curious. It's just like 5 simple steps and, you know, some videos and stuff of sharing some tips to just make it easy, because I know it's kind of a lot of work for trying to deal with the educational piece and the actual cooking, which is the fun part. So I try to meet everybody's needs on those and just give you a quick little boost in the starter phase. So that's over at humblehill.com.
All right. Well, fantastic stuff. Appreciate the time. I'm glad we could do it, and it was fun doing it at night. I like this. Maybe I don't know if we'll make it a thing, but a little primetime show.
Yeah, if they
So,
let me back in the library again, I can
so,
join you.
so thank you for the hectic farm schedule and get us in this time. But I appreciate you taking the time, Courtney. We're going to go ahead and get out of here, and we'll go catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.
All right. Peace.